speaking of trying to get any form of help, National Treasury, of course, applying for that $1 billion loan from the new development bank. It is aimed at fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, but the department is also considering facilities offered by other multilateral funding organizations. South Africa is looking for funding with perhaps lower interest rates after it was downgraded twice in the space of 1 week by ratings agencies, which gave the nation its first full house of junk ratings since prior to 1994. While the BRICS New Development Bank hasn't necessarily received that formal request as yet, it does say that they are in discussions with Treasury and that the loan would be made available within days after the request is made and agreed to. The NDB, of course, started in 2014 by Brazil, Russia, India, China and South Africa. Initially, a lot more for those infrastructure projects across emerging markets. Let's cross on live now to Thabi Leoka, economist, who joins us then. And perhaps let's talk about the implications of what this means. You get this $1 billion loan for the country, and it certainly becomes a question mark then, and hopefully we'll chat to her. And Thabi, it's one of those where for the longest time now, we've kind of asked ourselves whether South Africa needs more funding, whether we need to start going to these multilateral organizations. Is this the right time? Is this the right amount?
So this time is different, unlike previously, and obviously we've got the challenges of the COVID-19 and its impact on the economy. We're not the only country that requires funding. As you've seen, other more developed countries have also requested funding and require funding, and I'm told there's a long queue at the multinational organizations to get some sort of funding.
Yeah, the difficulty becomes then whether, if this is enough and whether we should be going to the IMF and the World Bank. Your thoughts?
So the $1 billion is for now, and I know that the NDP has said that they would extend the loan and give us another $1 billion later in the year. Each member is entitled or can draw around $2 billion from the fund. And, I think that as long as, or if the loan is affordable, given that the cost of borrowing for South Africa is going to be very high, or is high compared to last year after the junk status. I think that it is necessary at this point, and it could be enough. It depends on how long the lockdown is. We are also doing our own efforts in South Africa in terms of raising funds, reallocating funds from the fiscus, getting the private sector to also play a role, and ordinary South Africans. And I guess we'll only know once we are out of the lockdown, which I'm not sure whether we will stay just for 21 days or longer.
Yeah, I suppose that does become the next sort of hurdle as well then for President Cyril Ramaphosa with regards to that lockdown. Just very finally, are you getting a sense that economically we're trying to at least loosen the purse strings enough just to at least get ourselves through this? And I say that because, there's multiple measures the Reserve Bank has put in place. National Treasury now making this effort to go in and ask for help. And of course, you've got a whole lot of government departments making their effort. But when you start looking at the likes of Japan with a near $1 trillion stimulus plan, the United States with $2.2 trillion, you begin to ask yourself whether you're doing anything that is enough.
So we are very different than a lot of the other countries. We do have a fiscal deficit, and a very deep one is that this year the Treasury expects a widening of minus 6.8%. So we are not in a position where we can throw trillions and trillions of rands in the economy, unfortunately. But we do know that there's a cabinet meeting tomorrow, or Thursday rather, and at that meeting they will discuss how to reallocate the budget and also to raise more funds. I think that we are in a very difficult position compared to other economies, because we're a country that is in recession. We're a country that economically is not performing well. Unfortunately, unlike in 2008 during the global financial crisis, we got into the global financial crisis with a fiscal surplus.
Yeah.
So we were able to use various tools to help the economy turn the corner. This time around, we don't have those tools, and we have to make do with what we have, or get assistance from the multilateral organizations.
Yeah, and as you say, that could certainly be costly. Thabi, appreciate the time. Thank you so much for that. Economist Thabi Leoka joining us there to help unpack that picture just a little bit more.